everybody. Welcome to another edition of the CrossFit Games Update Show. I'm Sean Woodland with Tommy Marquez and Pat Sherwood, and the 2018 Reebok CrossFit Games Open is mere days away. We are about ready to kick this thing off. Today, we're going to be paying attention to the top stories on the men's side of the house as we get into the season. But first, let's set the stage here and give you an overview of what the Open has looked like. Here's how things have broken down as far as participation between men and women go over the last 5 years. It's been about 60%, 40% skewed towards the men, give or take a couple of percentage points. And then last year in 2017, the women accounted for 43%, the men 57%. But the growth rate for the women is what has been more impressive, and that's probably a trend that we're going to see continue here.
I think so, and I don't think those numbers that we just spoke about are representative of what's happening in affiliates across the world, actually. So myself and Captain Handsome, Rory McKernan, we've been interviewing some affiliates, getting them fired up for the Open, and gym owner after gym owner is saying their breakdown of the class is at least 50% men and women, if not slanted more towards the women. So I know that's anecdotal, but I think the women participation is just going to skyrocket.
And that's just going to be more indicative of the general population as a whole, right? General women outnumber men on the global population scale. But I just think it's cool that we're starting to see a sport that's already been, at the forefront of equality based on payouts, representation at the games, population-wise start to find that balance as well.
The Open is the first time we actually get to start looking at a leaderboard that was not from a year ago. And some of the people who have won the Open have gone on to do extremely well at the CrossFit Games. This is now the 8th time that we've done the Worldwide Open. Dan Bailey, everyone knows this, Pat, won the Open in 2011 for the first time and went on to finish 6th at the CrossFit Games. And then Rich Froning went on his run. Matt Fraser, the year before he won his first games, won the Open, but then finished 2nd. Noah Olson is the only outlier. In 2016, he won the Open and then finished outside of the top 6. He's the only man to win the Open and then finish outside of the top 6 at the CrossFit Games. And as this competition has evolved, how do you think athletes have changed their approach to the Open?
Well, I think the scope of the season has changed dramatically in terms of the competitive landscape, in terms of how many talented athletes out there and what it's going to take to win the Open. So I think coaches and athletes have shifted accordingly. I think so much more now coaches take into account the total wear and tear across the season, and that maybe pouring everything into the 5 weeks of the Open may not be the most important thing for an athlete, say like Scott Panchik or Matt Fraser, who really their goal should be to be the best in July or now in August when it comes to the CrossFit Games. Whereas I don't think that was the case early on when we were still at 26,000, maybe 69,000 athletes in the Open, and some of these top athletes could be like, you know what, I'm going to go for broke during the 5 weeks of the Open, win some cash, and be at the top of the leaderboard, and still be okay for the games when they come around later on.
In my mind, the approach to the Open for the best athletes has definitely changed, and the clearest example of that is, we chat with a lot of people leading up to the season. How are you doing? And everyone in the world, if you follow CrossFit, Ben Smith, just an icon of the sport. His story is representative of many other athletes. Back in the day, and the day wasn't too long ago. That was 2-3 years ago. Those guys just walked around even in the off season with so much fitness that they didn't have to worry about it. I'll do the Open, I'll hit it, I don't even check the leaderboard, I'll see it at regionals. And now those athletes that I would talk to that didn't repeat Open workouts, didn't care about the leaderboard, will be like, no, I will do it early. I will try to check the leaderboard. If I don't think my score held up, I'm gonna do it again. I might do practice a little bit of it, then implement a new technique. So every year, we talk about that competition getting tighter, and how the athletes approach it is just reflecting that.
Every year, we also talk about athletes who have moved to different regionals, and this year it seems like all the big names, for whatever reason, decided to now go to where they will compete at the Central Regional. Matt Fraser is going to be there, Dakota Rager, Easy Muhammad, Christian Lucero. These are just some guys to name a few. Now, you had an interesting perspective on this. You actually think this is a good thing for Matt Fraser.
Yeah, I think regardless of where Matt Fraser moves, it's going to be a positive for him, especially when he moves to a region like the Central, where he has a great litmus test against basically a dozen other CrossFit Games athletes. He has a level of fitness where it doesn't matter where he goes. He's going to take a spot to the Games. So that gives him, with all of these talented athletes, he gets to see how close his competition is to him going into the later parts of the season. He gets to see, hey, is Hepner close? Is Panchik close? Is Alex Anderson close to me? Are there some things that I need to work on relative to these athletes that can kind of give him a barometer where he should be at during this time of the season? And if, say, someone like Alex Anderson, who sometimes has trouble getting into the top 5 but then really excels at the Games, happens to not make the games, you've just knocked out a couple of your contenders early on in the season before they even have a chance to maybe take a couple of swings at you in the games.
Let me just play devil's advocate here. If you're saying that Matt Fraser's knocking out competition that he will face at the games at regionals, if you're not making it to the games, how are you a threat to Matt Fraser?
Well, I think the scope of this is shrinking, but there are some athletes that are much better athletes at the games in terms of the skills presented at the games than they maybe are at regionals. That's not to say they're not tremendously fit athletes all around, but we still see athletes like Alex Anderson or Alex Vigneault who maybe have to fight to get one of those top 5 spots, but once they get to the games, they're a shoo-in for top 10.
And I think there's an asterisk next to the word threat.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, a threat to Matt Fraser. If Fraser's anywhere near where he was last year, he's just competing with himself. He's just kind of seeing what these other guys have going on, and no one's a real threat, but he gets a good assessment. So 2018 Fraser, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, look at Brent Fikowski, how much he struggled to get to the games, and then once he was at the games, he is one of the best in the world. So we still see some
Cole
athletes
Sager falls into that
who
category.
fit into that particular
We're
category.
going to be paying a lot of attention to what's going on there with the athletes who will be feeding into the Central Regional. But other than the guys who are clearly on the radar right now, who will you be watching here in the next 5 weeks?
Who do you like? You've always got a couple, like a dark horse or
Yeah.
somebody that's slightly off the radar.
I mean, I like Vigneault, who I mentioned, because he's coming back strong. But there are a couple of guys, Anthony Davis and Darwin Perez, who are 5th and 6th worldwide in the Open, that obviously we didn't get to go see individual, that hopefully we get to see them go this year and see what they're capable of at the regional level. And they'll be a part of this Central Regional that's stacked. So they're going to get thrown right into the fire. I think Elliot Simmons, who's the other half of the Jamie Green power couple, I think if the changes last year had been in place, he would have gone from the newly formed Meridian Regional compared to the Europe Regional. So I think he stands a good shot at maybe making his rookie debut at the games later on this year. So I think that those some people, some new names that we could be talking about in a couple of months.
And of course, we always need to look at the old names that we should give the credit that they deserve, such as a Travis Mayer. We were talking about that before the cameras clicked on upstairs, who was, I had to look back, 10th and 12th the last 2 years at the games, which is, again, I just always stumble over the facts. It blows my mind. So we're watching him from day one. And then George Sterner, young man, competed at the games as a teenager and now has come into his own and is a man, and he will be throwing down once again at regional. So I want to see what he can do.
I'm going to throw you under the bus. You forgot Travis Mayer made the games last year, so.
The cameras are on, Tommy, not when the cameras are on.
I probably won't forget it if he makes it again this year, though. We'll be keeping a close eye on all those guys. And, of course, the Worldwide Open gets started February 22nd. We're going to be live 18.1 in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Sam Briggs and Kristen Holta, 5 p.m. Pacific time. You can watch it on games.crossfit.com and on Facebook Live. You cannot watch it live unless you already have a ticket. It is sold out. I guess this thing's sold out in less than an hour. It's going to be packed. It's going to be a great environment down there. Can't wait to watch that all go down. That's going to do it for us for today, but we'll be back with another show on the website talking about the women's top stories. So look for that. For Pat Sherwood and Tommy Marquez, I'm Sean Woodland. We'll see you guys on the leaderboard in the 2018 Reebok CrossFit Games Open.